Welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and today in the studio we have, again, my very good friend, Eric Gao.
Hey, everybody. I'm back.
Yes, love it. Well, last time we talked about tabletop games, more commonly known as board games.
Right.
This time we're going to geek out about...
Also, technically kind of a tabletop game.
Yeah, it's
not really
super
sort of,
related.
Yes.
Super related. Usually
these are very closely related genres of games. And if you like one, you're probably interested in the other.
Yes.
Today we're talking about role-playing games.
Yes. Usually played around a table.
But thanks to modern technology, it's perfectly possible to play online or even through text.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a very versatile game form.
So the most famous role-playing game at the moment is Dungeons & Dragons.
Which they just released a wonderful movie of.
Yes. Oh, dude, if you haven't watched the movie,
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That was a fun movie. Honestly, you don't even have to know how to play Dungeons & Dragons. They made it fun all around. I have friends who don't play, who went to watch it, said it was a great time. Yeah. But if you have played Dungeons & Dragons,
there's a little bit extra layer.
Yeah, they give you a little bit extra stuff for you there. It's great. It's fantastic. Just like if you're not a Spider-Man fan and you go to watch Across the Spider-Verse, it's a fun movie. But if you are a super fan of Spider-Man, man, do they give you extra stuff.
There is so much in that movie. Wow.
So Dungeons & Dragons specifically we have spoken about it before and referred to it in this show. But Eric has actually been playing for a really long time.
I've been playing in air quotes.
In air quotes.
I probably first got exposed to the game back in middle school, so the early 90s for us. So I think that's when I first noticed, the big old books in bookstores or hobby stores that say Dungeons and Dragons on them. And of course, you've heard about it growing up. The older kids have talked about it.
Yep.
I think I was one of the few who actually self-taught them how to play the game.
Ooh.
Because at the time, I didn't know anyone who really played. So I think I got a starter set somewhere and kind of learned to play and tried it out with my, family friends growing up before finding classmates at school who played and actually had a proper D&D group. And back then it was 2nd edition.
Okay.
And we are now technically in 5th on the cusp of
1 D&D or something,
which they're going to call
it.
D&D 1 or something like that.
Well, let's also talk about the times because at the time that 2nd edition was out, what was that?
The early 90s, I think. The game has been around, I think, since the late 70s.
Correct.
The very original version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
It's evolved a lot since then.
Absolutely. So 2nd edition and the time that you were playing it was roughly early 90s. And at the time, there was a lot of stigma around playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, I believe it was mostly in the late 80s that was the height of the satanic panic surrounding the game, because the game deals with a lot of fantasy themes. It has characters and monsters including devils and demons. It has gods, and also it didn't help that there was a fairly popular Hollywood movie starring Tom Hanks that cast the game in a bad light.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What was this?
I forget the name of it, but there actually is a movie starring Tom Hanks, everyone's favorite actor.
Yeah.
That showed D&D and role-playing as actually demonic.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
to be fair, if you do look at this from a concerned parent's point of view, if you're listening to your kid talk about attacking, some warlock whose patron is some demon,
and calling on a god that you've never heard of before.
it does sound super sketchy.
It does. It does. But it actually did lead to, whole movements of, concerned parents trying to get the game banned, trying to, make sure that it's not played on schools, things like that.
Right.
Actually, it went beyond just D&D. I think Magic the Gathering, there was also a period of time where
they were attacking Magic.
Certain cards that had, quote unquote demonic art, they had to, make some tweaks to those too.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, look, it's healthy to have an imagination. And that's essentially what these games were.
Yeah, that's what they are.
That's what they are. It's just a few of us nerds sitting in a basement.
Ideally
anymore,
not
guys.
a basement. Maybe back in the day. Maybe back in the U.S. when people had basements.
Right, but sitting around a table and we're just telling stories and using our imagination, which is what role playing game is.
Yeah. So last time we were talking about tabletop games, board games. Those usually involve boards, cards, miniatures, props.
Yeah.
But with Dungeons and Dragons, you literally don't need very much.
Not really.
You have a few pieces of paper, a few dice, and that's all you need.
Yep.
And nowadays, that can all be done on your app.
That's true.
So all you need is your phone.
Exactly. Even digital dice rolling, which I do not support. I don't support digital dice, guys, because
For reasons.
For reasons. Visit phoenixdice.com for all of your adventuring gear needs.
For your physical dice.
Yes, for your physical dice. Because, digital dice don't have souls, as we know.
And they don't do the clicky-clacky sound.
They don't do the clicky-clack sound, which got me into dice in the first place. Yes. So you roll some dice. You have a piece of paper that has some details on it, like your specific character details. And that's all you need.
So players in D&D fall into two categories. There's the Game Master or Dungeon Master, specifically for D&D. Other systems call it the Game Master or something similar, who is the one creating the world, creating the challenges, creating the situations, and then presenting it to the rest of the players who have characters within this world.
Correct.
Most of the time, each player is playing one character, and they decide what that character does. Ideally, this character is different from the player. So it's not just,
Me.
I'm Eric in the game too, and I do everything that Eric does.
Although I have played games where that's hilarious, where we purposefully will insert ourselves into the fantasy world.
I mean, I can remember a game that we played where I basically created myself in the game.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's a cool twist on things. But generally, there's actually a lot of
There's a large variety of RPGs out there.
Yeah.
D&D is our particular jam.
Yeah.
But there are many different kinds of games. If you don't like high fantasy, there's a lot of modern games. There's a lot of
future
RPG,
exactly.
the space RPGs. There's Star Wars. There's Star Trek. There's all sorts of ones different out there.
Cyberpunk.
Yes,
that kind
actually,
of stuff,
Cyberpunk's a good one too.
But specifically, when you create a character, as you said, ideally it's not you. I've actually found it funny where is stereotypes about the first character that you create. What do they say?
It's sort of the idealized version of yourself.
Who you want to be.
Who you want to be. And we found that to be mostly true so far in our experience.
Yeah. And then the second character you create is something about who you actually are.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then after a while, the more you play, you start creating some really weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a meme. Your first character is
I've never
super
played
serious.
a sentient slime before. Let me try that.
And then eventually your 46th character is sentient slime.
Yeah.
You carry yourself around using Mage Hand.
Yeah.
Guys who know, you know.
If you know, you know.
So tell me more about the role of Dungeon Master.
So the Dungeon Master is responsible for essentially everything.
Right.
Every D&D game takes place, by definition, in a world. How expansive that world is depends on how much work the Dungeon Master has put into it.
Yeah.
It could be anything as simple as a dungeon, like it says in the name. It could be a town near the dungeon. It could be the area that the town and the dungeon are in. It could literally be an entire world, and in some cases, a multiverse.
Yes.
Where you can go from planet to planet or plane to plane.
Yeah, that definitely has happened for me before.
And then aside from creating the world itself, the DM is responsible for creating the story that the players experience.
Basically, you're the narrator of this book, and the characters are characters.
But the difference is, as a author, as a writer, you decide how the characters react. But in a role-playing game, it's up to the players to decide how their characters react.
And then you play off of that.
And then you see what happens, and then based on the decisions made by the characters, the DM has to say, okay, so they chose to do A. So what does that mean for the world? Your choices as the characters matter.
So where do the dice come into play?
The dice are there basically to add that certain level of uncertainty.
Right, chance.
Because players don't like to lose. So
generally, no, you don't like to
given
lose.
the choice, they would just say, oh, there's a bad guy here.
I see him.
I win.
Yes. I fight him and I win.
Yeah. The dice are there to say, wait, hold on. You need to see if you win.
Yes. You need to be able to pass that. Like, are you successful in, first of all, locating said, spy or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you even see this person, then are you going to fight him? And then who starts fighting? Who gets the first blow in, right? And then if you do get a blow in, do you hit the other person?
And how much damage do you do? And depending on how tough they are.
Yeah.
You might do like a flesh wound, a pinprick,
Right.
or it could be really damaging.
Really, really bad.
And then it's the DM's job to kind of arbitrate all that. because, like we said, people don't want to lose. So they'll just, oh yeah, I strike him down with one blow. Oh, hold on there, champ. It's a knight in full armor, and you're level 1. Let's tone it down a bit.
Yeah, we're gonna tone this back. Roll that dice.
Yeah. Oh, you rolled a 1. You definitely did not smite him in one blow.
No, definitely not. That's one of my favorite aspects of Dungeons and Dragons, and other RPGs, where they actually have a tool of chance. They throw some wacky situations into the story because you know that one is going to show up. By one, I mean on a 20-sided die, which is normally rolled in Dungeons & Dragons to decide most things. The highest being 20 and the lowest being 1. Mm-hmm. The 1 usually defines a spectacular failure.
And I seem to recall a certain someone sitting in this room rolling some 1s at some very critical situations.
Oh, totally. I think I caught COVID.
You caught Fantasy COVID that one time.
I did.
Because you rolled a 1.
Right, so the dice gives opportunity to both the players and the dungeon master of just telling a more colorful story.
Exactly.
Okay, prospective dungeon masters who are thinking about becoming one, this does make it sound really difficult to run a game, like to create a whole world, but you can start as simple as downloading some source material from the internet, because at this point you don't even have to buy it.
The game has been out for 50 years now in some form or another.
Oh,
it's
under
been played
an open gaming license.
since the 2000s, yes.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of advice out there on the internet. There's plenty of pre-written adventures for you, so you don't even have to come up with your own original content if you don't want to.
Correct.
There's officially published stuff that you can buy from Wizards of the Coast if you want to get the official stuff, so you know it's balanced and it's been play tested and all that.
Right.
There's all sorts of options for you to get started. And like we said, there's a lot of advice online. One of my favorite YouTubers, Matt Colville, has taken it upon himself to create an entire series teaching people how to be DMs, how to be better DMs.
Yes. Matt Colville is great. I mean, he's really, he's very passionate when he talks, so he really pulls you in there. And a lot of his tips and advice are really great, like really spectacular.
Honestly, his advice is good for more than just D&D. It's just for how to be a good person in the world. How to deal with other people in a respectful way to, make sure everyone stays happy.
Yeah. Matt Colville, are you hearing us? please, can I interview you? That'd be great.
Oh, that would be
my
great.
Goodness.
Oh, Matt Colville.
As you've played both sides, the Dungeon Master and the player character, right? Which do you prefer?
I kind of enjoy both. I was recently telling you about some of my plans for the characters in a previous campaign that I had run. So it's fun coming up with all those rug pulls and, cliffhangers, but it's also a lot of work.
Oh, right? It's super a lot of work.
You are responsible for creating the entire world. Each player is only responsible for playing their one character, but you are playing everybody else.
Everyone else.
So all the NPCs, the non-player characters.
Yeah, like the dudes that you meet in the wait staff in the tavern, or the gangsters that you
play everybody.
Everyone, yeah, including sometimes horses.
I can't do horse noises.
No, me neither.
But yeah, so like you have to be thinking, okay, well, what does this wait staff at the tavern? What do they want? How are they going to act when the players come in and start waving their weapons around?
Exactly.
No, sir, this is a tavern. Please put your sword away.
Right.
Or they'll be like, it's an adventure. It's another day. What do you want? There's beer on tap.
Right.
These things you have to think about, because the main job of the Dungeon Master is creating a believable world.
Correct. For the players to play in.
And part of that is saying the characters you interact with, they're real. They're not just fake, and they're not just like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, no consequences. No, this is a real world, and
Absolutely.
The things you do matter.
But right, this world is the point. I think the most fun that players can have is if this world is really well fleshed out and very colorful.
And it's partially on the players as well to take this world seriously. If you go in saying, I know the DM has plans, I'm going to mess with them.
Right, I'm going to burn this tavern down.
It's kind of disrespectful, actually.
That's super disrespectful, because this person spent a lot of time building this place for you to play in.
Yeah.
Can you please play in it?
Yeah, that's sort of the unspoken rule, right? The social contract of D&D is, yes, you can do whatever you want, but also kind of play along with what the DM has planned, or else you're forcing them to make an impromptu adventure for you, and that's hard.
That's really hard.
That's really hard.
It's very hard. As you said, I've also had experience both as Dungeon Master and as player, and they both have their pros and cons, right? So as you've said, the dungeon master has to spend a lot of time illustrating their world for you, building this for you to play in as a character. Although that is super fun watching expressions on players' faces when they're suddenly surprised by this, most of the time, horrible thing that happens.
By this Machiavellian plan I've had brewing for months.
Right? It's always a treat to watch reactions. It's also really fun to be on the other side and be surprised.
It's also a chance for you to be someone other than yourself as a player.
Yeah.
Because the ideal is to really occupy that character that you're playing. It's kind of like being on stage.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You're acting. You're being someone else for a time. And that means you have to experience the emotions and think the thoughts of someone who is not you. And not everyone can do that.
Right. You are playing a role. I do think that most people can do it. They just have to let go of a lot of the embarrassments. A lot of pre-built, things that they have in their mind that is preventing them from doing this.
That's true.
Yeah. It's that's something I had a lot of trouble with in the beginning, is letting my guard down and being comfortable with, because you are amongst friends, to be silly.
It's giving yourself permission to not be yourself.
Giving yourself permission to actually wholeheartedly dive into this world, be this very interesting character that you rolled up, and
And it's not easy. Not everyone can do it. Don't force it. And especially for DMs, don't force your players to do that. If they're not comfortable role-playing to an extent that you would like, don't push them. Like, give them opportunities.
Yeah, it's a great
but don't
tip.
be like, no, you must say everything in character with an accent.
Oh, God.
Please don't do that. It's I can't do accents, so I can't do it as a DM either. So.
You're fair. I can't do accents, man. And they're always, people who are interested in D&D, they always watch some YouTube, and they always see really good DMs. And as someone who dungeon masters frequently for noobs, that pressure, man.
Yeah, I think that's also it's a challenge to overcome, because there are so many celebrity DMs in the world nowadays, thanks to YouTube and Twitch and things like that. People get this idea in their head of what the idealized D&D game looks like.
Yeah.
You have a DM who can do voices and come up with stuff on the fly, and
Matt
then
Mercer, please let me interview you.
Please let us play in your game. And then, with witty players who can also do voices and come up with cool ideas, all on the fly, all impromptu, nothing written down beforehand. But let's be honest, most players, most DMs aren't like that.
Yeah.
We're just normal people trying to have fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a humble game, guys. Yeah. And I think a couple of tips that we can give you, both Eric and I, for people who are trying out this game, is trying to relax, calm down. You are amongst fellow nerds, right? So it's totally cool to get weird with it.
Yeah. And don't get too ambitious starting out. I think a lot of people, they're... Maybe not the bar, like their expectations, I need to create an entire world.
Oh, right.
There's so much to think about. Actually, no, you really don't.
No.
I think there's Matt Colville in one of his videos says, if you're doing a dungeon, you don't really need more than 3 rooms, because that's about how far your players are going to get in one session.
Especially if you give them a puzzle for elementary school students.
That'll take them all night. So, you start small, and you'll be surprised how little progress your players make each day.
That is
and
very
then
true.
Depending on how often you meet, like you hear in the community that, you play every week. Let's be honest, with our schedules, we can't play every week. So that gives you time to prepare the next.
Absolutely.
3
Yeah, you can start with
rooms.
Just your tavern in just this town and do some, do a plot hook or quest just here. And then next week, if they manage to finish your pre-written stuff, then you can expand it.
Like, if you remember the first session from our campaign, it was literally, you arrive in town, 2 fights, done.
Yeah.
That was the entire first session.
And it was like 3 or 4 hours.
And none of you would have thought back like, oh no, that was so basic. I can't believe Eric did that to it.
No.
Right? No,
I mean,
like your players will never think that.
It'll be fun. Yeah. It'll be fun regardless. Because with the added chaos of dice and the story that the DM is weaving for you, it'll be fun.
And also you want to give your players that opportunity to talk amongst themselves, to come up with group decisions, not just
plans.
I'm just going to go do this thing on my own, because you are a member of a party, you're a member of a group.
And that's something that I really lastly wanted to talk about, is how RPG games like Dungeons and Dragons build people, because you are sitting around a table, cooperatively speaking, trying to work together as a team.
So that's part of the Dungeons Master's job, is to present challenges, and then it's the player's job to come up with solutions.
Yep.
Is it the solution that the Dungeon Master had in mind? Probably not. Will it work? try it. Find out.
We don't know. Roll that dice and see what happens. Yeah. I've always thought that if you play Dungeons and Dragons and or other role-playing games, that should be a bonus on your resume.
I completely agree.
Because either as a dungeon master or a player character, there are a lot of things that you learn to do on the fly or as far as world building and planning that contribute to roles in a company.
And at least it also proves that you know how to get along with other people.
That is a very basic thing that you would assume, but is not always a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately.
Right. But guys, play some RPGs, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be D&D. It could be Cyberpunk. It could be anything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
just go out and
jump
play something.
Just go do it. Thanks for geeking out with me again, Eric.
It's my pleasure.
And thanks, listeners, for tuning into Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang. I'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.